let's get another question here. Jim, a popular topic, one that is captivating some fantasy wrestling fans. The idea of Tony Khan, or more appropriately Shad Khan, purchasing WWE.
Oh, come on.
Lots of questions have come in about potential buyers, but an inordinate amount have come in about the idea that Tony should, or that Tony could, or that Tony would buy WWE. So without dismissing it and laughing about it, what are your thoughts on the Khans as potential buyers of WWE?
Okay, in all honesty, and I think we mentioned this when we did the breaking news on Vince first coming back. Yes, Shad Khan was willing to give his son his inheritance early so he could see him enjoy spending it. But I don't even know if Shad, and Shad has other children, doesn't he? But I don't know if even he is prepared to say, okay, let's get into a $6 billion deal, Tony. You've been doing so well with what you got. Because who knows what the bottom line of AEW is? Because I know a lot of people like to talk about, oh, well, they've done $1 million gate here and there and everywhere, and the TV rights fees. But as we've mentioned also, besides the fact that they've spent, by their own admission, tens of millions of dollars on the video game that will be out shortly in stores near you, the 100 and something wrestlers under contract, and the amount of money that they spend on their production of not only the Dynamite, but also Rampage. And the YouTube shows aren't free just because we scoff at them. They've spent an incredible amount of money. They've taken in an incredible amount of money, and who knows what's what. But that doesn't mean, number one, that Shad Khan is going to say, okay, I'm ready to pony up $6 billion all at the same time. And then what would they do with it? Because, again, this is so far above, and this is not even a knock on him. It's far above me, and I've worked there longer than he has, which would be at all. So far above Tony's level of expertise, comfort, or competence to run a company of that size. And yes, I know all the employees would come over, but he's still got to tell them what to do and decide which ones to listen to and which ones not. And then they wouldn't sell it to him because, again, if you're, whether it's the WWE or whether it's Sony Pictures or whatever major entertainment entity, yeah, you might want Warner Brothers Discovery to buy it, or Disney to buy it, or NBC Universal to buy it, or whatever. But just because some fucking clown that won the lottery had $6 billion, would you say, okay, well, he's outbid Warner Brothers Discovery or NBC Universal by $200 million, so we're going to sell it to the fucking guy that's going to bring $6 billion in a shoebox. And then good luck to him after that. We don't give a shit. No, this would be so far and above over all of their heads on how to run a company like that. The employees at not only at the highest level, but also fairly well down to the middle of the company would be more experienced, more well-versed, and more organized in running a business than what the owner would be at that point. One thing we can't say about Vince is that he doesn't know how everything works in that company, who does everything, who's responsible for everything. And the fucking, the wrestling fans get mad because his booking went insane or just becoming stuff to please himself over the last however long. But has anybody ever said Vince McMahon's an idiot when it comes to business? So, no, it's ridiculous. It's just fucking ridiculous to think that that would happen or that they would even probably let it happen. What do you think?
What do I think about what?
How much do you scoff at the idea of the Khans ponying up $6 billion for the WWE?
I scoff at it because, again, we're talking a lot about businesses as opposed to individuals. I think Shad Khan is worth somewhere between, depending on the estimate, $8 and $12 billion. The Jaguars, hold on, let me look up.
So right there, I'm going to give half of what I've got for this one business to make my son happy.
The Jaguars, the NFL franchise they own, well, he owns and his son owns because of being his son. The franchise value of the Jaguars for 2022 is $3.48 billion. So WWE, because they're going to want ridiculous money, and I personally don't think it's worth it, they're going to want almost double, if we assume what we've been hearing, what the NFL team cost.
Well, and now, wait a minute. Was that what the NFL team cost, or that's
what it's worth?
Valued
what it's valued? Excuse me. What it's valued at? Yes.
So the point is, they just don't have $3.8 billion laying around in the Jaguars' checking account. That's just what the valuation is of all of the various things coming into play, and that's probably high.
Do you think this is going to end up being like Turner Broadcasting buying WCW?
That's what I'm afraid of.
It's hard to think of too many other roads. And let's be honest, as we're talking about the sale of WWE and the state of AEW, and they've had a couple of good dynamites, there is a chance that in the future we'll look back at this as the beginning of the conversation about the death of professional wrestling.
Well, and that's what I'm worried about. And I wish they'd wait a few more years, because then I'll be completely retired and they can do whatever they want to the business. But Turner Broadcasting bought WCW for many of the same reasons a conglomerate would buy the WWE today, only the reasons have magnified. Back then, it was one of their highest rated programs, if not their highest rated. They wanted all the content. They wanted to keep it on their station. And they were seeing the touring business that was healthy and thinking, well, healthy for the time. If we're behind it, it'll get much bigger than this. And so they saw an opportunity to have their biggest programming and in-house and make money with it and blah, blah, blah. Problem became they didn't know anything about wrestling when they were confronted with one of those wrestling things where you say, well, you can't do that. You do it like that. Well, why? And they didn't get it. And they ran off the talent and they fucking ran off the fans. And a year after they bought it, the houses were 25% of what they had been. And the TV ratings were down because the talent was disgruntled and everything was sideways because they had all the money, but they couldn't call the main shots. That needs somebody with wrestling experience. And so, yes, Triple H and Stephanie are still there and hopefully would be there. But if some unknown entity buys that, the WWE, they control not only the largest company in the world, but the largest by 4 or 5 times at least. And, AEW is the only thing even close in this country, and they're not close at all. And, what happens if they fuck the whole thing up? Then there you go. But Vince will still have his check for $5 or $6 billion.
And he'll be running it. That's what it's going to be. Buy the company, give me all this money, and then hire me back to be either the executive consultant or the CEO.
Well, at that point, then I wouldn't be as worried if Vince was running it and a big conglomerate owned it as if I would the big conglomerate owned it and they were telling the people what to do with it. Because no matter what Vince would do, it wouldn't be as bad as we've seen in the past. Every time that some outside businessman, somebody that's made a lot of money in some other endeavor or a major corporation buys a wrestling company, it's fucking brutal on the mental state of all the wrestling people trying to tell the business people what the fuck's going on. And it generally leads to strife and chaos and a downturn in business.
Who do you want to see buy WWE? Knowing it has to be sold because it's going to be sold.
Mike Mondo.
Come on, people say you're too nice to Mike Mondo. This is evidence of it. You think he should buy WWE?
I think he should. Well, he'll take good care of it. He'd work hard and give a shit about the wrestling business. I mean, it's not like that there's anybody. Bill Watts ain't going to do that. Eddie Graham's dead. Most of the great wrestling minds are gone. I don't give a fuck. One major conglomerate not in the wrestling business would be just as likely to fuck something up in the wrestling business as any other one. So if you're talking about an outside wrestling entity, which is the only type of organization that's going to have that kind of money, I can't think that why anyone would be worse than the other unless you just found a really stupid person in charge of that business. But